It's really rewarding. It really makes me, happy to be doing what I'm doing, feeling like I am making a difference in people's lives. Hopefully, maybe also making a bit of an impact on the workforce.
Hey you guys, this is Parchelle. Thank you for hanging out with me again. This is the Call to Coach, where I dive in with some amazing coaches and individuals who are changing the world. That's what I believe that they're doing. So I'm excited today to be talking with Lise Schwartz. She is a performance improvement and career transition coach. And I'm excited to be here in her lovely home. Thank you, Lisa, for hanging out with me. It's great to be with you.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, as you guys know, the topic of conversation is the call to coach. I really want to dive into the stories and excitement behind why you're doing what you're doing. So, let's just start there. How did you get into this amazing world of coaching?
Well, it's interesting. It's not a straight line, but I had an early career as a producer and a director, and although I had never intended to do that, I came out of a background of fine art, and I discovered that I was a really great director. And there are a lot of parallels between being a good director and being a good coach.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that about myself before that. And then I sort of, moved into the area of training and organizational development and that kind of thing. And I was asked to create some coaching programs for the organization that I worked for. And so I really started to understand coaching and what the differences were between managing and coaching and training and all of that. And some years later, when I moved to the Pennsylvania area, I was asked to come and work with a big global utility company that was outsourcing about 600 of their folks. And in order to do that, they wanted to have an expert come in who really understood change and transition. And these 600 people were from their IT department, and many of them had grown up in the company. So even though they were what we would call mid-career, people who were maybe in their 40s, some of them had worked for this utility company for over 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, believe it or not. They had started in high school when they used to read meters on houses. And they had high school kids doing that, and they joined the organization, and then the company paid for them to go to school, paid for them to get an education. They worked their way up the ladder in the organization. And so now here they were with no experience other than this company, right? So I worked with them on understanding change and transition, understanding what they were going to be going through, what the organization was going through. But then I really had to coach them around how to now look for a job in a very, very different environment than when they started. I mean, most of these people, honestly, when they first looked for a job, there was no internet, believe it or not. I mean, it was that many years ago. So I started working with that population, the career transition kind of folks, and really coaching them around behavioral kinds of situations, on interviewing, on things like that. And then my coaching business really started to blossom. And what I find most rewarding about it is that people are so empowered by coaching, and they're sort of they surprise themselves at what they can do with somebody sort of just boosting them up a little bit and being able to have some laser focus on how they're getting in their own way very oftentimes. So
that's amazing. And I think the first time that we connected, it was over the fact that we both were in the film world.
We had both worked in production, yeah.
And with you doing directing, how do you find that is you know, it's like it ties in, like you said, with
Right,
coaching. How
right.
have you found that that experience helps you with being a coach?
Well, so if you know something about directing, you know that directors are they give notes to their actors or to whoever it is, even in documentary film and so on, whoever they're working with. They never sort of read the line, so to speak. They never tell them how to do it, but they try to kind of tease out of them the results that they want. And I think that that's kind of the correlation between coaching and directing. It's that you're never telling someone, you know, what to do. You're getting them to understand, you know, what to do. And oftentimes you're getting them to understand what made it so, or you cause them to understand things.
Yeah.
And that helps them because they're coming to their own realization. And that's what directors do too. They want to pull out of a performer their best performance.
Wow.
They're not going to tell them how to perform. They're going to sort of reach into them and find a way to reach into them and pull it out. And that finding a way, for me, is to be able to understand their communication style, their personality style, and to adapt to it in a way where I can, as a coach, really, really hear them, and that will help me to understand where they're coming from, and I can also be understood by them. They can hear me.
That's awesome. And I know that with your experience in production and just looking at the story of your life and all the events that you've experienced and witnessed, right? It's the question...
You calling me old?
I mean, the question that comes to mind is, you know, do you feel like this is something that you've been called to? Do you feel like it called and pulled you towards it?
I didn't go looking to do this.
Wow.
I mean, it found me. And I am, you know, really always a little bit surprised when the phone rings and somebody says, you know, that I've been referred to them. I really don't do, maybe I should, but I don't do a lot of marketing of my, you know, of this particular service that I provide. But I have tons of referrals.
Yeah.
And so it's coming to me, I'm not going to it. So yeah, it is like.
I love that. So tell me then about, let's say, pick one story for you of all the people that you worked with, the one story for you that makes you feel just amazing and really super proud of this decision that you've made to follow that.
There were probably a couple. I guess that one that comes to mind was somebody that I worked with who had gone through the really horrible years in the financial services industry, and he had sort of been a whistleblower. And he was someone who is involved with credit risk. And the company that he worked for really pushed him out because of, you know, the fact that he pushed back at what they were doing at the time.
Right.
And so he left disgusted and feeling very beaten up. He was very beaten up. He was forced out. And it's an industry that is highly regulated, and there are licenses involved, and he felt very threatened, and he didn't want to lose his licensing, so he left. And he kind of floundered about for a couple of years, and when he was referred to me, he kind of was acting like he thought he never would work again. All right? And ultimately, we sort of turned that around. We needed to, because when you do this kind of coaching, it's the whole person that you're coaching. You're not just talking to them about their career. You know, it's the psychological, the emotional, the professional, you know, all of that, workplace etiquette, you know, everything. And ultimately, to get him sort of back on his feet and to increase his career esteem, is what I call it, self-esteem around your career, we got him some consulting work, and that got him back on his feet. And he was very active in the field and very well respected in the field before, and so we started remaking those connections, and ultimately landed at, and I'm not even going to say the name of it, but one of the largest financial services organizations in the world, with a global position, an executive director position, and it was just a remarkable success story, and changed his life around. I mean, it really changed his life around, and the person who came to me and the person who ultimately ended up in the position, it was like looking at two different people. And as a matter of fact, once he got his new job and spent a little bit of time in that position, he came back to me for in-job coaching, and we continued to work together. He was in a very cutthroat organization, which he's subsequently left. This was a number of years ago. But he would talk to me whenever he had challenges that, he was kind of needing some support or some understanding or some help with. So I continue to coach him to this day.
Wow.
That's nice. It's really nice.
And tell me, so that feeling to know, like what you said, the person that came in is not the person that, you saw go on. So what is that feeling like for you?
It's really rewarding. It really makes me, happy to be doing what I'm doing, feeling like I am making a difference in people's lives. Hopefully, maybe also making a bit of an impact on the workforce, in terms of delivering to them folks who are more capable of performing at a higher level and a better understanding of themselves and the organizations and that kind of thing. So it feels good. Feels really good.
The more that even as a business owner, for me, going from teaching high school to doing what I'm doing, I had coaches along the way. And so I just really find that work that coaches are doing is really making a huge change, because you're not just talking about and dealing with the surface of whatever it is. It's something much deeper, right? So what are some of the things that have worked for you to get into that sort of space with them to help them uncover those things? Is there a certain way that you go about it? Like, do you have a style? Do you have a way that you...
I don't have a model. I really customize my approach for the individual I'm working with. I am a big believer in understanding communication and personality styles, and adjusting and adapting my approach to whoever I'm working with. So that helps us to, first of all, make the connection. I think if there's anything that is consistent in what I do with different clients, it's that relationship building part of it, okay? And once the relationship is established, there are certain things that it really depends on where someone is when they come to me.
Sure.
What challenge brought them to me is going to make a difference in terms of how I work with them. I do a lot of exercises around career self-esteem and connecting to your passion. What it is that makes you feel good, what it is, you need to go with your strengths. And I also help people understand what they're best at, and to try to focus their attention and their activities around those things. So a lot of us are, it's a lot of like round peg in a square hole, or square peg in a round hole that goes on, where you may be trying to do something that you shouldn't be doing.
Right.
And that's really hard to face up to and make change around.
Right.
But I think that my strong suit is helping people understand how to navigate the choppy waters of change and get through that.
And that's something I hear you say often, is change and pivoting. And so where does that come from for you? Have you experienced that in your own life and having to pivot?
Yes, I have, personally and professionally, and I have had, probably 4 distinct successful careers in my life that were very different not very different in nature, but to an outsider, it would appear as though they were very different. Okay. So you might say to me, gee, you started out as a fine artist, and, you you graduated with a degree in photography, and you're a coach and a trainer, and you work with organizational development, and like, how did you get there? Well, for me, it makes perfect sense. I sort of understand the evolution of that and how it occurred, and what I just explained to you, for example, about how directing really relates to coaching, and I see how all of these things are connected, and outsider might not see that,
Yeah, that's when I just love the connections, right? The change in our own lives, enables us to help others go through change and to experience that growth. So tell me a little bit about what's next for you. What is your vision in terms of what you want to see next with your career, your involvement with with your clients and helping to change the world?
So I love doing what I do in terms of the coaching. I also I am not one who likes routine, so I like to do different things, and because of that, I try to balance my practice so that I would like it to be 50-50, working with organizations and working with individuals.
Okay.
And so right now, I'm a little more heavily weighted on the individuals, and that's because of the referrals that I get. So I'm trying to promote my ability to do this with organizations, both in terms of training as well as coaching, okay? Because I can train leaders to be better coaches, and I can help organizations understand who their leaders are. And that's the work that I would like to do a little bit more of going forward, although I continue to support the individuals as well, and I hope I always will.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's amazing. And so what are some of the ways, or I guess I should say, when someone is looking for help, why should they work with you? What sort of situations are they in that would be...
it varies a lot. Yeah. Most of the time, individuals that come to me are people who are making mid to late career changes or want to. Very often they find themselves unhappy in a position that they're in, and they're not sure why, and they feel as though they can't make changes. They feel very trapped. And there are thousands of reasons for that, and not the least of which is the pressure that we feel, the expectations that we think there are on us in terms of everything from making money to being who you said you were going to be. And most of us really decided on a career when we were maybe 16, 17 or 18, applying for colleges, and you don't really know yourself very well because you're not fully developed as an adult at that point, as much as we think we are. And so if you were good in math, or if you were good in math, for instance, your guidance counselor, your parents might have encouraged you to go to a school where you could major in finance, and you might have gone into, if you did well, you might have been picked up by an accounting firm getting out of school, and then you went and got your CPA, and you were promoted, and that felt good, and you were making a lot of money, so you bought a house, and maybe you got married, maybe you had kids, and now you find yourself at the ripe old age of 40, right? Having probably going to work another 25 years. Realistically, people are not retiring before 65, 66, 67 now. And feeling like if you have to get up and go to work as an accountant every day for the next 25 years, you're going to blow your brains out. So because you really didn't understand who you were, what your passions were, but those folks often feel very stuck. I can't start over. I have a mortgage. I have a couple of kids that I'd like to send to college. What am I going to do now? I can't start over. And you don't have to start over. There are a lot of options. And so the first thing is understanding that and realistically considering what you could do that you would be happier doing, that is more aligned with your value system and your passion, and then how do you pivot?
Right.
Right?
Right.
So, and it's a really fun process, really hard to do on your own. Almost, it's not impossible. There are people who do it without help. It's so much better when you have help. Everything is.
Yes.
It is so much. I coach so many people in job coaching who are they're in leadership positions, and it's lonely at the top. They are not comfortable, and I don't blame them, and I wouldn't even necessarily encourage them to do this, but they don't like to let folks that they work with sort of know that they are insecure or in doubt or not knowing what to do. And so, in those situations, I provide, first of all, a sounding board. Second of all, I can provide advice that comes from years and years of experience in corporate America, and I have a lot of experience from working in Fortune 100 companies. I was the Chief Learning Officer at what is now Bank of America, but before that it was Fleet Boston Financial, and before that NatWest Bank. And I also worked for Medco, which is now Express Scripts, as their Director of Organizational Development. And so from inside those companies and working on really the largest bank mergers in history, managing the training for all of that, and working in those changing organizations, I really understand what goes on during change, during transition, what goes on in the individual, how they feel about it, what's happening to them, and when I say happening to them, that's how they feel.
That's how they feel.
That's how they feel. But it's happening to them.
Yeah.
And then what's happening on the organizational side. I'm really good at helping organizations understand what they need to do and how they need to communicate and how they can successfully navigate, through this minefield and come out on the other side successful.
Yeah. You think it's accurate to say that change or things are happening not necessarily to you but for you?
Yes.
For an organization? And
there's absolutely no question in my mind that the majority of opportunities that there are revealed during change. So those very chaotic situations really give way to remarkable opportunities that don't present themselves in sort of, regular business as usual environments. It's a great opportunity.
You gotta embrace it, take it, or have the right perspective, and it'll get you further along for sure. And so episode 2 of Call to Coach I did with Frida Doxey. She's a Hall of Famer, Division I player and coach for women's basketball.
Right.
And she says we're all competent individuals. Like, we could figure it out, but our biggest hindrance sometimes is not asking for help. Right. When we need it. You know? And
it takes a village.
It does. It does. So I'm going to ask you, as we wrap up, thanks for letting me hang out with you. This has been amazing.
Thank you.
I learned a lot.
Right. I'm glad you came east.
Absolutely. So my last question to wrap up with you is, what is your one word? I really believe in simplicity. Right?
Yes.
If there was one word that resonated, Lise Schwartz, for people to hear, to embrace, to go and like, that's your word. Do you have a word? One word.
Creative.
Creative.
Yep.
Tell me more.
I think that my approach is creative, and that I think creatively about change and about how to embrace the future and improve your performance, be better as you go forward.
And to be creative, to be as change happens and things are going to be creative about how you pivot.
Exactly. Embrace the change. Think of things differently, new ideas, in that way, creative. That's how I think of it.
I love that. And that goes back to your production role.
There you go.
Still creative.
Right.
I love it. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks. It's been great being with you. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for hanging out. If you want to connect with Lisa, I'll have her information
Thank you.
In the link as well, so you guys can check that out. But I'll see you guys next time. This is the Call to Coach. And if you don't have a coach, go get one. It's
a good idea.
Bye.